thank you very much for coming. My name is Greg Story. I'm the president of Dale Carnegie Training here in Japan. And today's theme is to take some of the Dale Carnegie principles and use them to help you in getting through that job interview. It's a competitive process. There's only going to be one winner, usually, and how do you make that person yourself is how we look at it. So, talk a little bit about Dale Carnegie. The Japanese speakers in the room will know these books, Hitobukasu, Michiwa Hidekeru. In English, we know them as How to Win Friends and Influence People, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. They're very, very famous books around the world, translated into multiple languages, and always in the top 10 best-selling non-fiction books around the world every year. So, really long history. Dale Carnegie is a company, we're training more than 90% actually of the Fortune 500 companies in America. And so these are the most powerful, most prestigious companies, and they choose us for their training because of the results we get for them. We have offices in 100 countries around the world. We teach in 30 languages. That means that for companies who are global, and we do a lot of training actually for German global companies, Volta Tools is one, Continental is one, Vika Manufacturing Company is another one, where we go 35 countries around the world. So it's very advantageous for companies to be involved in that. And one of our biggest fans is Warren Buffett. Does anyone know who Warren Buffett is? Yeah, they're probably the most successful investor in history. I don't think I can think of anyone who's been as successful investor as Warren Buffett. Big fan of Dale Carnegie. Like a lot of people, he took the Dale Carnegie course and he said, you know what, this is fantastic, changed my life. And he says that all of the time on video when he's being interviewed. So we can never afford to pay Warren Buffett for a testimonial. He's just too massively wealthy. But he does it of his own accord because the course he took was so powerful. And he's in his headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska. And he's being interviewed by one of the many TV stations. And that little certificate on the wall there is actually his Dale Carnegie graduation certificate. And he makes the point that I don't have my university graduation certificate or my master's degree on the wall. I have this on the wall because this helped me the most. This changed my life. So that's a very powerful endorsement from a very successful person. And in Japan, well actually, Wade Tony-san is now the head of Shiseido. So I should update this slide, shouldn't I? He was a previous coach at Coca-Cola, now the head of Shiseido. Murakami-san was the previous honorary chairman of Google. And Atarashi-san was head of Johnson & Johnson. And in the Japanese business community of seniors, these gentlemen speak and write a lot, and they refer to all Dale Carnegie graduates. Atarashi-san graduated in New York when he was doing his MBA there, and the other two gentlemen graduated here in Japan. But again, we have lots of testimonials from very successful people around the world. And when we do training, we always do a scoring of satisfaction. How was the training received by the participant? Please come in. Please come. And I asked New York, I said, look, we're doing this all the time. Could you aggregate all these results and give me like one number? What's the average satisfaction rate? So I thought, should I do it over 10 years or make it a bit shorter, maybe 5 years? 5 years is quite a considerable period of time, but fairly recent. And that's the number that came back in terms of percentage of satisfaction with our training. So when people say, you know, it's American or it's foreign, won't work in Japan, well, we know. We've been here 54 years in Japan. We know it works. So very successful in that sense. So some of the principles we're going to start with are in these golden books, actually, that I have up here. And the first one there is smile. And that seems an obvious thing. Another one is begin in a friendly way, which also seems obvious. Another one is begin with praise and honest appreciation. Now, what's interesting about this is we sometimes forget these things in an interview situation because we're feeling a little bit tense. It's a pressure situation. We're in a room we've never been in before usually. We're perhaps in a building we've never been in before. We're in a company we don't really know, meeting a person we've never met usually. And you know, you might be trying to be calm, but pulse is probably fairly high. And sometimes that tension translates into our face. We don't know it because we're thinking about, oh, what's going on, or what am I going to do? But actually, our face is a mirror to what's going on in our mind. And when we're really concentrating, we can have that concentrated look on our face. It's not smiling. It doesn't look friendly. Right? And first impression. When we do presentations training, we ask the participants, how long does it take you to form a first impression of someone you meet for the first time? It's now down to 2 and 3 seconds. Like you might think, oh, a minute, 30 seconds. People are thinking 2, 3, 4 seconds. That's not much time, is it, to form a first impression? So you might be tense, but remember to smile. And I've interviewed a lot of people, mainly Japanese people for my company. And I can tell you, Japanese people sometimes confuse serious face with a friendly face. And they look so serious, they look scary. They look angry. Now, maybe if you're Japanese, you can tell, oh, no. That's not an angry face, that's a serious face. But as a foreigner, they just look angry. So be careful. Relax your face, look friendly, begin in a friendly way, body language. Don't sort of, come in like, typical Japanese like this. Walk in straight, tall, confident. Smile. Greet people. Design how you're going to start. And begin with praise and honest appreciation. Thank them for the opportunity. Thank them for their time. It's a very obvious thing, but some people don't do that. They come in, they sit down, they're nervous, their brain's on fire. They forget these little things. How we start is going to have a big impact on how we finish. And first impression, very important, and so is last impression. How you finish. As you're leaving, smile. Thank them for the opportunity. Thank them for the time. Leave in a friendly way. Look like you're the type of friendly, cooperative person that someone would want to work with. Now, the person interviewing you may not be the person you're going to work with, but they're representing the company, they're representing their colleagues, they're trying to find a way forward to pick the right person as a match for the chemistry of that organisation. So these are very obvious and basic things, aren't they? But sometimes we forget these things because we're too tense. We're focused on ourselves. And this is what we find when we're teaching presentation skills. And I left these little blue cards on your desk, your seats there. When we first start teaching people presentation skills, it's all inward. It's all, what am I doing? What have I got to say? How do I look? And gradually, as we teach them, it becomes outward to the audience. That's a little bit how it's got to be in the interview. It can't be about you. It's got to be about them. You've got to switch the focus a little bit. Another one is don't criticise, condemn or complain, Dale Carnegie's principles. Often in an interview you're asked why you left a previous job. Oh, my boss, he was terrible. Oh, that company, they were awful. This is not a great way to start an interview. All right? You will get asked, why did you leave? Now sometimes, and I interview a lot of Japanese people, the company's closed down, there was a merger and acquisition, they got moved out, things happened in the company where they no longer had a position, so they came onto the market, or they left to go to what they thought was going to be a better position. There are many reasons to leave, and that's fine. Western companies particularly have no problem with that. But it's how you express it. If you start complaining about your previous colleagues and start complaining about your previous boss, it sounds like you're a whiner. So it's whinging all the time. Maybe you're going to do that about this company. Always talk in positive terms. I wanted to grow further. I wanted to expand my experience. I felt that I'd made a contribution there, but it was a flat organisation. It was very difficult to move up. I needed to go to another company to have the next chance to step up. Now, my company is a very flat organisation, and that happens. People realise, well, it's a flat organisation. He's the president. Where am I going to go? If the scale is small, then you've got to move. Everyone understands that in business, but don't start complaining about your previous employer. It doesn't give a good impression. Look for positive things that are motivators for you to make the next move in your career. Another principle we have here is get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. Anyone here in sales, by the way? Anyone coming from a sales background? Some people, all right. You know that in sales, what you say and how you say it is critically important. Words matter. And design matters. When you're designing your questions or your conversation or your statements with a company, design makes a big difference. You can make a statement. I'm a great team player, or I'm a good team player, or I believe in teamwork. That's a statement. That's what you think. Who knows what they think? It'd be better to try and get them to say yes to that. Would being a good team player be an important component of your company's culture? It's a question, you see. So, good team player has now become a question. If they say yes, then it makes sense for you to say, I believe I'm a good team player. Let me give an example where I have exhibited that capability. You check first before you talk about what you're good at. Now in sales, you know that the buyer might be interested in pink. You might like pink. I don't know if you like pink or not, but let's assume you like pink. But I start talking about blue. And I talk on and on about our blue. This is the best blue in the world. You've never seen a blue this lovely. This is a blue to behold. But the buyer is thinking about pink. So no matter how great my blue is, it doesn't match the buyer's need. A company is the same. It's a sale. They have a need. They have something they want to do. And you better know that what you're going to talk about matches that need. In some cultures, maybe teamwork is not important. Maybe they're very independent units. And they don't care about that so much. They care about revenue. They care about results. You need to know that. So try and design things you want to say about yourself as questions to check first that this is actually significantly important for them before you bother to go into telling them how great you are in these particular fields of work. Okay, get the idea? And try and see things from that person's point of view. Now, this makes sense. The trouble is, what's the other person's point of view? And how would you know that in an interview? And how would you know how to match what you've got to what they are looking for? There's an exercise I recommend to you, a very, very simple exercise. It's a little brainstorming exercise. You can do it by yourself, or if you've got friends who want to help you looking for another job, and maybe you can brainstorm together. And I'll just give an example here. You just write in the middle what the company wants, what you imagine they want. You don't know, actually. But you do some brainstorming. What would a company want? And you'll find that it breaks down into basically two buckets. One bucket is around skills, basically. And the other bucket is around your personal traits, your personal abilities. Now I'm going to give you an example here. We did this exercise, someone looking for a job, and this person had failed. They'd been to numerous interviews, they were very capable, and they had failed with really key companies they wanted to target. And they were really getting desperate. So we went through this exercise. What I discovered though in talking to them was, in the interview, what they were talking about was what they thought was important. They hadn't considered what the client thought was important. Big difference. So we went through, we said, well, okay, let's go back to zero and start thinking about it from the client's point of view. What do they want? And for example, these are some of the traits. There was a big long list. I just picked up some of them. They thought that this particular company, right? There was a particular company they were targeting. They wanted to have an interview with this company. They thought, well, in this company, I think, this person, that the team player part is going to be very important for that company. It's actually a sporting goods company. So that makes sense, doesn't it, right? And communication skills, yeah, I think that was important. People, social skills, yes. Leadership, motivation, being a motivator, actually, someone who motivates others. Having a cultural understanding. This is in Japan, right? So person's bilingual, yes, they're looking for that probably. Global citizen, someone, in this particular case, they could move them out of Japan and put them in South America or Europe or Australia. They had to be global, because a rather young person starting their career. Being a brand ambassador 24 hours a day, not just at work, and having the consumer view. So this was the result of a whole bunch of brainstorming. Just the ideas came out first. So just basic, sit there, get a piece of paper, draw that circle, and like draw these balloons, right, and put the words in there. Like for example, you might put, team player, right? Team player goes in there, and then you get all these other filled out, and then at the end, go back and then think about what's the priority. Then you think about, okay, priority. What would be the priority? I think this one's number 1. So you give that one a 1. And then later we just typed it up and it looked like this. But this is a very simple exercise. Doesn't take long, but it's very, very insightful. So we do it first of all, we did it for, what do we think the sort of skill set the company's looking for is. Then we did it again, and I'm not going to ask you to read that, I'll just only show you the first section. Right? This is the top section of that long list. These are the personal attributes, personal traits of this person, as they saw what the company was looking for. He thought that the company would look for someone who's reliable, organised, self-disciplined, creative, innovative, self-starter, take initiative, dedication, work hard, energetic, confident, decisive, meticulous. So went through and then put them in order, right? And some they couldn't decide, like dedication, hard work, energetic, all got 5s, right? Confident, decisive, all got 6s. That's okay. What you're doing now is you're taking the other person's viewpoint before you get to the interview, and you've thought about what they want, not what you want, what they want. You've analysed it, you've got it a priority. Now, when you come to talk about yourself, you relate these points to your experience, to work you've done in other companies, to your aspirations, where you want to work. And you start to match the two up. See, it's no good talking about things that you've done that don't make sense to the company. It's like that it's about that pink and blue example before. Are they interested in pink or are they interested in blue? Which one do you think? Now, you're guessing these things. The other thing to do, though, is also look at company reports that are on the website for listed companies. They always have a section where the president talks about what's happening in the company, the president's vision for the company, the direction for the company. It talks about the financials. That can be a bit too involved. Often, they'll have quite a bit of information there about the culture in the company. This is very valuable information. This will help you when you're trying to work out what the wants will be for that company. So go onto the website, get out the annual report, go through it in detail. Do searches on the company, PR, press releases, what they're saying, how they're projecting themselves. Today, we're fantastically blessed because we have all of these wonderful tools like LinkedIn, Facebook, you've got Twitter, you can do Google search, Yahoo search on people. There's an amazing amount of information out there. So you can start looking, the annual report will tell you who are the top echelon in the company. You can start looking into who those people are, what their backgrounds are, what they've been doing, what the company direction is. That will help you when analysing what you think, what you're guessing the wants might be. But don't say things like, I'm dedicated. That's pink maybe, but maybe that's interesting, or maybe it's blue and it's not that interesting. Maybe they want something else, you're not sure. See, you ask, in your company, I'm sure dedication is a very important part of the team working well together. Is that the case? You check first. Then you make an example. I believe I'm a dedicated person. I'll give you an example. We're doing a project, da-da-da-da-da. So you're also telling stories. Okay, don't just talk about what you did. Talk about your colleagues. Talk about situations. Talk about projects. Talk about things that they can identify with. Storytelling is so powerful. It's so powerful. Don't miss the chance to take what you've done and make it into stories that are easy to remember, easy to absorb. These are things you'll find work very, very well when you're in that situation of trying to explain where you fit into the picture. This exercise, both for wants in terms of skill set and personal traits, one of the most valuable things you can do. Now, you won't probably use all of those, like there's quite a big list there, but you start by organising the first bit in the design of what you talk about. You try to bring these things up, organisation, reliability, creativity, self-discipline, whatever it might be. You try and start the conversation around those things, but you're checking if that's actually of priority interest before you go into too much detail. If it's not a priority interest, find out what the priority interest is, then bring out your stories, bring out your experience, bring out your examples related to that particular aspect. Okay? So be sympathetic to the other person's ideas and desires. Now, the person who's interviewing you, they have to get the right person, right? So they are very, very keen to know whether you're going to fit in or not. The trouble, though, is often we are putting up a sort of a face that may not be the real face, right? We're putting our best face forward, as we say in English, but it may not be the real face. Their job is to try and understand if what they're saying is real. So they're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions to try and uncover that. You've got to know that. You've got to know that. So you've got to try and find ways to demonstrate that what they're seeing in front of them is the real person, not some fake person who's just putting this on for show and is going to be totally different in the workplace. Right? So you've got to think through, what are the likely things that they're going to ask me? What are some things I can show to show I'm genuine? This is what you're seeing as the real me, and if you buy me, this is what you're going to get, and you're not going to be surprised later. Right? So that's the pressure on them. Also, what are some of the other things that they're trying to achieve? From their point of view, what do you think the outcome's got to be? You know, how many people they need to hire? What's the time frame? Is there going to be a fast turnaround required? Is there going to be lots of vetting, lots of stages of interviews? They might be the first stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage. Because what I'm talking about now applies through all these stages of the interviews, because usually they're different people. The person at the beginning is different to the person at the end. In my case, in my company, I do the first one and the last one. I do the first one because I really believe, I want to get a sense, do I want to see any more of this person before we bother? So the first one is really critical. But you'll then often meet other people in the company. What is their role? You've got to understand what their role is. They're going to report back on you. What do you want them to report back on? Think about that and design that interaction with them so it gives them information they can easily pass on to the next person in the line. Because undoubtedly they'll be taking notes, what are the key points. So you've got to be very concise in what you're saying, right to the point, key points, driving off what you think is going to be the case with those items you've nominated, with examples, with stories that really bring that out, bring it alive. Okay, how are we going here? Okay. And talk in terms of the other person's interest. The other person's interest, usually in companies, it's going to be around speed, it's going to be around revenue, it's going to be around quality, it's going to be around brand, reliability. You can work out basically what you think the company's interests are going to be and what this person representing the company's interests are going to be. Having thought through that, that's how you want to approach the conversation. Okay? If you think brand is an important thing, then you might talk about where you have experienced the importance of brand, either as a worker in another company or as a consumer or as a client. You know, there'll be something in your past which has brought out the importance of that item. Bring it up. Okay? And if you can, tell a story about it. And the story, try and make the story rich in detail. I was in New York on a business trip. We were meeting with a very important buyer in the beautiful big meeting room, big table. The president was there. I was making my explanation. And I found that I could really get across to the president because I was using persuasion skills that I'd learned in training, which I'd read about, which I'd been practicing. See, I'm now talking about I'm persuasive, but in the context of it's New York, big meeting room, president's there. You see, you're putting it into a mind picture that that person can see, because they've probably been there themselves or they can imagine it, as opposed to, I'm very persuasive. Totally different. I'm very persuasive. I was in New York with the president, big meeting room, boardroom, da-da-da-da. It's just a little bit more powerful. It's like 4 or 5 extra words. That's it. It's not like, 10 minutes on the boardroom. And let me tell you about the decorations they had in the boardroom. And let me tell you about the chairs they had. No. You don't need to go there. You keep it brief, but you just give that little bit of extra detail that helps them to go to where you are. Then they start to see, oh, this person is persuasive, because they've got a very clear picture of what you're talking about in their mind. You're demonstrating your ability to be persuasive, or be concise, or be clear, or what it is that you want to emphasize. Okay? So you've got to think of it Often we think about our interests. Okay, well, is the job going to be paying me enough? Is it going to be the right work-life balance? Am I going to suffer from power harassment? Will I have a chance for promotion? That's all about us. That's all about us, right? Well, in the interview, there'll be time for those sorts of questions at the end. You need to design those. But you've really got to start with their interests. Because you won't get to the point of finding out whether the conditions are going to meet what you want. In my company's case, you don't even know what you're going to get paid until the last interview. Because what's the point? If we're not going to hire you, why do we bother? We don't talk about conditions till the very end. You've got to get to the end. So a bad question is, how much money am I going to get paid? Bad question in the first in round. Not a good question. Good work-life balance. Can I go home early? Bad question, right? You don't want to form that impression. Their interest is you're going to work hard, we'll worry about money later if you're the right candidate. So start from that viewpoint is very, very important. Now, this is difficult. How do you arouse in the other person an eager want? You've got to become attractive to them. You've got to show that you've got the capability they want. And you've got to do it in a way that doesn't seem like you're playing them off against another company. Well, you know, I do have other interviews with other companies and we're getting through the rounds. You start saying that sort of thing, it'll just be, you're out. But you've got to arouse that feeling of competition in them to hire you. But it's got to be very subtle. It's got to be very subtle. It's still got to do it that they want to hire you. Because they think, you know, this person really fits in with where we want to go. They have the right attributes that I'm looking for. I feel that I'm really meeting the actual person we're going to hire, the real one. All seems good. But don't try and do the type of auctioning off of your services. Now, it's particularly the case with, well, it's going to be the case in Japan with young people because the population, young people, is going this way. The demand's going this way. The younger generation are all going to be free agents, like baseball players. That's the reality. That's where we're going. And companies will be short-staffed and they'll be desperate to take people. So there's going to be a real competition there. But don't express it that way. But express the fact that you are very capable and you know, you've got all the attributes they want and that they will need you to build their business because building their business is the thing they're after. How do they grow the company? How do they grow the revenues? Where can you fit into that picture? How can you contribute to those things? Right? Talking about what you've done in your resume and your history and experience, all fine, but it's got to relate back to what is in it for that company. How does it help them build their business? How can you relate your experience to make their company better? Those connecting items are critical, but often we just talk about what we did. Well, I was in that company and I was in charge of this section and we did this and this and this. Who cares? What does that mean for this company who's trying to hire you? How can you relate that experience to benefit them? That's a classic in sales, feature and no benefit, right? I did something. I have experience. That's a feature. Well, what's the benefit from that feature? I had this experience. We're doing a lot of projects. The benefit would be in your company, I would be someone who could work in a project team very easily because I've done that before. In fact, I could probably be the project leader if there was an opportunity because I have the confidence to do that. Because of the company I worked in, we did this particular project. It was very big. And it was this, blah, blah, blah. You give a very brief description. See, that type of bringing in the story and matching it up, that is very powerful in the mind of the person who's listening to you. So we don't want to miss those opportunities. And make the other person happy about the thing you suggest. Right? You're suggesting that you can contribute, and this is going to make them look good. You know, they're going to come up with really good hire, help the company. So you're suggesting they hire you, right? Because you've explained the value you bring, they will see, oh, okay, this is going to help me look good in my boss's eyes. I'm going to complete my KPIs. I'm going to be judged on how well I hire people. So they will be very happy if they have a feeling, a confidence, a trust that you're going to deliver on everything you've said in that interview because they're seeing the real you, not the fake you, the real you. Okay? Now there's something too, dramatize your ideas. You know, you're competing with other people and just being very flat, not much energy, talking in a monotone. Now, Japanese people will say to me, well, that's not fair because the Japanese language is a monotone language, so we are at a disadvantage. Not true. You have two leaders in Japan. You have the strength leader, strong, soft. You have speed leader, fast, slow. So even in Japanese, which is a monotone language, you can vary the strength and you can vary the speed to have variation in the way you talk. And using your gestures, the things that are on that little blue card, how to present yourself makes a big difference. So if you say, I'm very energetic with a voice and body language like this, no one's going to believe it. If you're going to say you're energetic, you better look like you're energetic. So you've got to take that in consideration of how you want to present yourself as someone who's got attributes they're looking for, and also the person you're dealing with. What are they like? For example, if they're a very detail-oriented person, you'll notice it. Oh, high detail. Well, you now start talking in terms of more detail. Percentages, numbers, right? References, examples, testimonials, or whatever it might be. If you find the person's rather big picture, well, don't start killing them with minor details. Talk big picture, talk strategy. If you find the person's very fast-paced, don't be slow. If they're fast-paced, come up in energy. You've got to match. Look, mirror whatever they're doing, you mirror it. If they're rather quiet and very sort of considered, then you're very energetic, you better just tone it down a bit, because it may not match with them, because we like people who are like us. So you have to get a sense of what is this person. This is the way their body language, the way they speak, the way they appear to you, the way they ask questions. You'll get a sense. Okay, how far can I dramatise my ideas? You know, if the person's very, very calm and you go way over the top, they might think, oh, this person's too dangerous for our company. Because they're viewing through their eyes. Right? The company itself, the company may want something, but it's through their eyes that they're viewing what they think the company wants as well. Right? So they're making a judgment. The company actually might want somebody really, really go, 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 but that's not how they see it. You've got to get through that first round. The second round person might be entirely different. Might be really, you know, like the marketing manager or someone like that who's really thinking strategy and, you know, we're going to have this fantastic campaign. Well, you match that person. And they think, oh, great, you're exactly what I want. This is what we want around here. And the third person might be a numbers person. Might be the CFO, or it might be someone who's very technical. Well, you better get really technical with that person. What I'm saying is, you have to dramatise your ideas, but be careful about the context of who you're dealing with, because it will vary from person to person. Okay? So here are some of the principles from Dale Carnegie, in that golden book, which we can use in our human relations to make ourselves much, much, much more effective. And you can apply these into the interview situation. I strongly recommend you do some brainstorming before you go to the target company for the interview around what you think they want in terms of skill and what you think they want in terms of the personal attributes of that person. I suggest you don't make statements. If you can avoid it, try to make questions from the statements. Check that what you think is important is actually what they think is important. And each person that you meet, that person sees the company's needs through their eyes. But the people in the company will have different eyes for what they think the company needs. There won't be one thing. But you've got to switch your communication style to match each time with each person. It's not going to be the one interview 4 times. You see? These are some things we need to talk about. Okay? So I'm going to open it up now for questions. We have 10 minutes for questions. All right? And at the end, I'll just take a couple of minutes to award these prizes for those who've managed to put their meishi. Is that the meishi bag there? Could you just make sure, anyone here, could you just grab that bag? Yeah, that one there. It's got all the meishi in it. If you have not given me your meishi, could you just put it in this bag here? I'm going to draw some meishi for these prizes here. If you'd like to be in the draw, just please put your meishi in the bag. I'll draw it. And look at the number of prizes here. So it's a good ratio of prize to persons in the room here. High opportunity to get something. If you haven't had a chance, please put it in. We'll do that in a minute. So, we have roughly 10 minutes for questions. Who has the first question? Thank you. Who has the first question? question I'm sometimes asked is, how should I dress for the interview? Should I be casual if they're a casual company? Should I be, you know, in a suit? Should I wear a tie, not wear a tie? How should I look? For most interviews, always be on the formal side. Better to be on the formal side. You can always scale it back when you join the company if that's their culture. But for the interview, just be a little bit more formal and maybe, particularly in Japan. I mean, I think Japan has got much more formal culture than most other countries. I'm Australian. Originally, we're a very relaxed country, informal. But Japan is more formal, so we have to think about that. So just dress a little bit more on the formal side and appear a little bit more in that fashion. Okay? There's a question. Yeah, please.
Nowadays it's so easy to put up these open job positions into the internet and apply. How do you see the quality of a typical, how much do companies actually think, how well they describe what they actually want and need, and when they put up the advertisement? Is it worth kind of coming back and not directly saying that I don't think this is what you need, I think you actually need this? That arrogance is of course not appropriate. But
the question is, when people put out job specifications, how well do they do that and how accurate is it for their need? It's a very interesting question because often the person who writes that is not the person who does the interviewing. And there's certainly the person in the second, third and fourth round didn't write that, usually. So it's very hard to tell, actually. When you look at those job specifications, again, they're usually fairly broad. It's hard to get a sense of what the culture is like in the company. That's why your research is important beforehand. That's why this is important beforehand. So in a way, by doing this, you don't worry too much about what's in that job specification because it's usually so broad anyway. You're trying to have those priorities worked out. So when you go in there, or when you're writing your resume to send to them, you're having this in mind. You're presupposing something. Now, you may be totally wrong. Well, that's possible. You could be totally wrong. But if your experience is good and if you're sort of going for some certain things, chances are pretty good that they will probably at least want to meet you. But I agree with you. It's very hard. I know also how much time do people spend on the resumes? Busy people don't spend much time on the resumes. Right? So you've really got to bring your experience out, and you've got to bring it out in evidence terms. You know, talk about things you did, the projects. Talk about where you can talk about actual projects. For confidentiality reasons, you may not be able to do that, but you can talk in general terms about that. Try and get that sort of detail in there, right? And then people look at it. There was a question over here. Yes, please.
What's are the points for the final job interview?
Okay, the question is, what about the last final job interview? By that time, you've had a number of occasions to meet people in the company, usually 2 or 3 by that time. Most people do at least 3, 4 rounds, sometimes more. So you've started to build up a bit of a picture of the culture of that company. You've had a chance to ask questions. That's very important too. Often when I'm interviewing Japanese staff for job positions, they don't really design their questions well enough to find out about our company. So design your questions well to get more information, particularly as you move through those rounds. Because then you get to the 4th round, you've got a very clear picture, compared to when you started, about what this company is looking for. So in that 4th round, you're really trying to say, I've learned about your company. I'm excited to join this company because I think it's a really good match with what I've got, with what you want. I think what I've got matches what you want, and I think I'd be very happy here, and I think I'd make a big contribution here, and I think I'd hit all those points, we went through all those priority points to help them. Because they may not have really looked at what was in the first few rounds. The handover between one interviewer to the next may not be very good in some companies. The notes they take may be very, very brief, and it's hard for the 2nd round person, all they're getting in these notes, for example, to know much about you. So you can't expect that the systems in companies are always perfect either. And the person you're meeting may have very little idea. And you may have to repeat some things again. But you can test that. You can test that. You can say things like, I'm sure you've had some reports from your colleagues on my first few rounds of interviews. Did anything particularly come out that you would like to ask me about that I haven't discussed with others already? And then you might find out they haven't read anything, they don't know anything, and you assumed, well, this is the fourth round, this person must know a lot about me. Maybe they don't. So you may have to resell yourself again based around that, but you need to check that. Or they might be very, very knowledgeable. They say, yes, well, you told that story about that big project and how you came up with that creative solution. We found that very interesting because we do very similar projects here and that would help us. So you see how that works? You've got to dig in a little bit and find out if that person, well, actually all of the interviewers, how much they actually learned about the previous interview. And don't presume, because it happened, that they actually know much. Often they don't. They've missed it. Yeah. Here's the next question. Yeah, please.
What you said, like you have to tell stories and do it in detail and stuff. What if you worked in R&D and you cannot talk about the things you did at all?
So the question is giving examples to show your experience where if you're in the R&D sector because of compliance regulations around confidentiality, you can't talk in detail. Well, you can't talk in detail, that's quite true. But you can talk in general terms. You can talk about a pressure situation unrelated to the product, unrelated to the actual details of what you're working on. It might be how you worked as part of the team to overcome that problem. It might be how speed became a factor and how you came up with creative ideas to speed up the process. It could be elements, the ingredients. It'd be like, we can't talk about the cake that we baked, but we can talk about the process of baking the cake. We can talk about some of the ingredients maybe, and our contribution to those ingredients in the cake, even though we can't talk about the cake itself, you see. So you can get around that to some extent, I think, and you can show, well, yes, I have expertise, I have experience, I have knowledge, I know how to do this, I did it for this previous company, I can do it for you. In fact, I've improved since when I joined them because of all these other things I've done through my self-study or whatever it might be, so that you seem very attractive. So, great, we hire this person, great, we've got someone who we can slot straight in, get to work immediately, going to be a contributor. I think we might, how are we going there? Oh, we're just about at time, I think. I'm going to be around after this, so I'm getting the note here that we're at time, because I know they've got a very big schedule today, but I will be around. Please take on board what I've mentioned here. You'll change the way you do your interview preparation, and you'll change the results of your interviews if you follow these human relations principles from Dale Carnegie. So good luck, and I hope you all get the job you're after. Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's hot today, it's Saturday, but Greg was kind enough to do the seminar for us. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.